Good morning, folks. It's about 11 a.m. on Friday the 17th of January 2020. We're here sort of in the middle of the block. That's Cashel Street just there, and this little walkway, well, the signs indicate it's a shared path, and then the government's gone and put concrete blocks at the end of it. So with a sign specifically indicating that cars are permitted. And I did see cars go along there, and there's parking spaces for cars. But for whatever reason, after a few weeks or a couple of months, they've put concrete blocks at each end. It's called Huanui Lane or something. I'm just showing over there. See that grassy expanse? Obviously this is all buildings. That's Manchester Street there. So they're all buildings that the government compulsorily acquired and demolished, and then just put nothing in their place as part of the so-called rebuild, which is sort of like the anti-rebuild. But anyway. And we'll just turn around slowly here. The point is just to point out that unirrigated grass here in January, Christchurch and much of Canterbury tends to get a very dry midsummer period. Not as much as some parts of Australia, but still quite dry. And the grass won't die, all the top of it will die off. The roots will be alive, and come autumn, bit of rain, it'll green up again. We're standing on, perhaps it's a grassy knoll. It's a little raised grass area, a little bit of a border garden around there. This stays nice and green, so clearly I can't see irrigation. I haven't actually gone around looking for, oh yeah, I can see some irrigation ports now. Some sprinklers or whatever, so clearly this is irrigated. Again, this used to be all buildings, and now it's just a big expanse of grass, bunch of decorative trees, and we've got these expensive apartments over here. I know some other apartments have costed between 1 million and 1.6 million each. I don't know about these particular ones, whether that applies to them or that's other ones, but some of this inner city apartments for inner city apartment building. But, you know, if you've got your 1 million to 1.6 million, what does that get you? Well, I'm going to walk through the garden carefully here. There's some ground cover. I think I can stand on the ground cover all right. That's a... And, but they've got a dozen, I've counted them, little apple trees. They look of a size, yeah, I think they were just planted this last winter. Being deciduous, you plant your apple trees in winter. We'll just step down here. The garden surround is actually the right height to be a seat. So, you know, when the weather's nice, you could sit on that. Whether that's by design or accident, I don't know. And as you see, some apple trees a little bit bigger than others. Several of them are absolutely loaded in apples. I don't know what variety they are. I don't know if there's 2 or 3 varieties so that they cross-pollinate, or if they're all one variety that tends to be self-fertile. But we'll just move in and get a close-up of some of the trees. Don't seem to have any apples on them. It's possible they were picked off by people, or I was going to say most apples were only in January now. They wouldn't have matured. Even early maturing apples in the South Island climate wouldn't be mature by now. But the later ones are not right until about May, you know, pretty much by the tree losing its leaves. But anyway, so there you go. I'm not sure how much these apartments are. They could be over $1 million each, but yeah, there you go. At least there's some apple trees nearby. I don't know if this land is, you know, perpetually bound to those apartments, or if it's just, you know, the apple trees will be here for a couple of years, a little bit like those willows, and then they'll just let them die and have nothing in their place. So who knows? But it's all action here in Christchurch. So it's just Cashel Street over there. And I was doing this video today because the wind wasn't much, and the lots of cloud cover. So I thought you'd get a better view without strong sun shadows. And of course the wind sprung up, and the sun's peeping through the clouds more and more. But it's nice to see at least a token element of food production in the inner city, and, you know, some greenery rather than those little border gardens of nothing but weeds outside your $1 or $1.5 million apartment. Alright folks, this is Catherine. We'll just have another look at the apple tree here. Someone might know the variety of these. There's sort of bit of a reddish colour to them. Maybe you call it burgundy, I guess. It's not red like some apples, but anyway. most of the trees looking quite good. On some of them, the support sticks have been broken, or they're out of the ground, and whether that's because they weren't in very deeply. I put my finger on one and gave it a shake. It didn't seem very secure. However, it's possible the vandals went along and kicked shit out of it to try to break it. Now, there is something here that I want to show you. See round the bottom. First of all, I can just see what seems to be a watering port, where I guess they come along once a week or something, and put water in it. But the other thing I've seen is, I noticed this last time, they've got a plastic, apparently a rabbit guard around the bottom of it, because rabbits will ring bark the tree when it's young, and that will kill the tree, and they'll just have a couple of bites and the tree will die. Hello, there's a little bird. Little bird's gone. And yes, I have seen live rabbits in this area. About 18 months ago, was it? A couple of years ago, a friend was here, and there was a little rabbit hopping around, and it wasn't shy of people. So they might be wild now, but they might have come from escaped pets. And broad daylight. Just on, a nice green grassy area. I think it was actually just over that way a bit. So clearly they thought they'd put protection in for rabbits against for these little apple trees. But there we go. Another look at Manchester Street, where all the buildings were destroyed by the government and nothing was put in their place. And they call that the rebuild. And the people didn't get any say in it. It was forced on Christchurch people by the Wellington government, basically. The blueprint, that's what they called it. They just announced it in 2012. It really annoys me. There's a building, there's a no building over there. It was already rebuilt in 2012 to the highest earthquake standards, and the government just compulsorily acquired it at tuppence halfpenny, and very little compensation was paid, took the building and demolished it, and left the land empty with a bit of gravel on it for a car park. So, it's not just millions of dollars that have been wasted in the Christchurch earthquake rebuild. You could count it up as billions. The wastage is just appalling. It's just appalling. But anyway, that's how the government likes to burn money. Okay, folks, I've prattled on for long enough. Here at the Grassy Knoll. I wonder if the president will ever drive past.